Don was definitely, in my mind, the best coach that I ever had. I liked his style. His style meshed very well with my personality, I think. And he was very calm. He was I would call him a man of few words. He was able to get his ideas and his thoughts across very, very effectively, but without dragging things on and on.
First met Don Smyth when he coached Victoria's senior secondary school. Don Smyth had a great program at Vic High. He went on to do very well coaching both the girls team and the boys team at the University of Victoria. Don Smyth also produced a myriad of players that went on to play in the national team. Ann Jeffrey, Ann Fowler, Bob Vosberg, Bob Ireland. All of these people had played in Don's program and went on to play on Canada's national team.
I remember Don, and he had this old cotton sweatsuit with faded blue that you had to probably wash 500 times. And I don't ever remember Don ever being in sport clothes other than that the whole time. He was lovely. He was kind. He made us work. We had to run a timed mile on the track. I mean, I was out of high school and I was a sprinter, and I thought, what's the big deal here? Well, yeah, when you start doing the mile on the track and doing the drills, it was an eye opener. You know, we were a new team that was going to be playing on the national team, and we didn't know what hit us. So he was the first person that showed you need to train. You need to be really in shape, not just because you happen to be young or happen to be able to jump or something like that.
At the time, he was more knowledgeable than many of the BC coaches around in fast volleyball. The tactics that was eventually came out of Japan. Anyway, Don broke that mold in terms of our training. And that's probably one of the reasons that we were quite proficient in that competition, because the rest of Canada, well, they'd started to introduce those tactics, really weren't at the same level and hadn't caught up quite yet.
Don was ahead of his time, actually, as a coach. In those days, the majority of coaches were old school, my way or the highway. And Don was very, very different. He was well-spoken. You could tell he was very intelligent. He never raised his voice. I can't remember him ever getting mad. He was cool as a cucumber. And that definitely resonated with a bunch of second and third year university testosterone loaded boys. And I think had we had any rocky times, I think we would have gotten through them very easily, but we were so well prepared.
I guess as a young volleyball player, I'm going to say even when I got to university, Don quickly figured out that my approach to hitting was, I was often ready to hit before the ball was set, and I would often overrun the ball, and I would be reaching behind my head to make contact, and Don says it's not very good, in his own sort of humorous way. So one day he showed up at practice with a rope, and he hobbled my feet. So he put a rope between my ankles and gave me enough room so I could move, but he said, that should slow you down. And he didn't leave it on for very long, but the lesson really stuck with me. And I thought, what a very good way to get that idea across, that I've never seen anybody use that technique again. I had never seen anybody use it before, but it certainly emphasized that the proper approach for me. And I remember it really improved my hitting.
And then I had the opportunity to be the manager of Canada's first national women's volleyball program in the 1967 Pan American Games. Don was the head coach and I was the manager, and it was my pleasure to work with him. What really stood out with Don was his innovation. Can you imagine Don was known to have introduced ballet training to the team, to the boys team. He even introduced trampoline training. Very innovative, very creative coach.
And he actually had us playing like a 4-2 system where we came from the back, because before that nobody really knew how to do that. Like, I came from grade 12 in high school, where you kind of, if you were in the front row, you played in the front row. If you happened to be a setter, you went into the middle and you sort of boosted the ball forward, or you boosted the ball back. We didn't do that with Don. Don had us playing, yes, a 4-2, but the setter coming from the back. So that was new. That was really innovative.
It's easy to find coaches who know a lot about volleyball, but it is very hard to find coaches who understand personalities the way Don did. And I felt that Don worked that perfectly. He understood how to deal with players, but he was a master of the game.
Congratulations, Don, on being inducted into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame.
Congratulations, Don, on being inducted into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame. This is a well-deserved award. And thank you for our early start in volleyball.
I'd like to congratulate you on your being inducted into the BC Volleyball Hall of Fame. It's a well-deserved accolade. It couldn't happen to a finer coach, player, and gentleman.
Thank you, Emma, Jerry, and Dorami. Good evening. I will be speaking on behalf of my dad, Don Smyth. Two reasons for me appearing. One, my dad continues to struggle with Alzheimer's. And two, I drew the short straw. Not that that's a bad thing. As my dad cannot be here to give thanks in person, it is my hope that I can convey his appreciation for this honor. He would be the first to suggest that there were better suited candidates, but my bias gets the better of me. Thank you to Doriana Elling, the Volleyball Selection Committee, and all those who have written a letter or given a voice. Thank you to Ken Lundeen, Mike Rockwell, Dale Owen, Carol Bishop, Greg Russell, and Vic Lindell. Your words were too kind, and they would have deeply moved him. To Kevin and Matt at Volleyball BC, thank you for your tireless and lengthy work in recognizing all these amazing people in such a unique way. As I spoke to my dad last Monday night and asked him what he thought about being inducted, with tears welling up and through trembling lips, he said, "Thank you." You could read in his eyes that he somehow understood what I said. To the 2021 fellow recipients and past winners, a heartfelt congratulations. The level of commitment and excellence to volleyball in BC is truly admirable and so appreciated. Dad would be truly honored, probably uncomfortable, being included in such an amazing group. Like so many kids of post-World War II, he was introduced to volleyball at the Y. Even while chasing a dream in the pool to make the 1952 Helsinki Olympics in swimming, he would later tell us that what drew him to the sport was a code of honor. He would later talk about the sense of honesty and fair play. He commented that it was so impressive to see national and international caliber athletes admit to infractions, even if the official missed the call. But as wonderful as this honor is, he would point out that his induction could not be accepted without the inclusion or recognition of so many. First, and more importantly, to his wife, Lorraine. This honor could not be possible without her love and support. 7 kids and 1 paycheck was a challenge, But with her, things just worked out. He would say, leaving you with the kids for extended periods of time was hard, but at least 6 of them turned out okay. Victoria had many sporting legends, and so Dad had amazing mentors as a kid. Arguably, 2 of the most influential coaches were notably Fred Ellingson and the legendary Archie McKinnon in swimming. It was always hard work and perfect practice from a young age. Being prairie born and being around the farm surely helped. Rugby with James Bay Athletic Club, football with the Goblins, and lacrosse filled his days and instilled a strong work ethic that would later guide him as a coach. As a coach, he would say, it is your players that matter most. And they did. To all his players, rest assured that you have profoundly affected my dad. He relished in your success. Though your presence, however long, the impact has been far greater than you could collectively imagine. In an interview with Cleve Deanshaw in 1987, he would comment that his biggest thrill in volleyball was to see so many of his players go on to coach and teach volleyball themselves in schools and community leagues. Even those that he coached for the shortest time likely came away feeling good about themselves and their contribution. He would coach at Vic High, both girls and boys. He later added coaching UVic, men's and women's, and then moved to schools to coach players at Mount View and then around the city. His pride in his players lives in on stories we were told as kids. The year-end party my parents hosted included the infamous foot-long hot dog eating contest. Jack Maggie luckily could only eat 16. My dad was worried because he, most likely Mom, special ordered them and there were no more left. The Smyth kids were upset because he didn't get any. You have to remember that volleyball was in its infancy in Canada. It was mainly played at the Y around the country, thanks to war veterans and Estonian and Ukrainian immigrants. The issues with volleyball in those days at Vic High were twofold. Initially, there was no local competition, and more importantly, Vic High was a basketball powerhouse with Porky Andrews as the coach. So having any success with a new sport in the Andrews gym likely came with conditions. He resolved the competitive issue after finding out that Estonian and Ukrainian sailors played volleyball in the hold of the freighters at Ogden Point. There was also lots of travel to the mainland and to the States. And to satisfy the legendary Mr. Andrews, he helped coach the grade 11 basketball team, which ultimately became a way to recruit volleyball players. Players through Victoria include Bob Ireland, Bob Bosberg, Derek Reimer, Jim Bosberg, John Phillips, Bob Graves, Vicky Sargent, Ann Jeffries, Ann Fowler, Ken Lundeen, Greg Russell, Clayton Lloyd-Jones, John Pennington, Jack Maggie, Nirmal Dillon, Nimby Sahota, Neil Coots, Arthur Chin, Bruce Smith, Deb Sakar, Charlie Graymall, Rick Baker, and the list could go on, but I couldn't place the faces. To the players of the gold medal Winter Games, Pan American Women's Team, Norsika's Games team, who had the privilege of coaching, thank you for your hard work and willingness to try new things. Dad really was a man of few words, unlike me. He had a knack for brevity, but was always convincing in showing how deeply he cared about his players and their success on and off the court. He continually spoke highly of his players and the character they revealed in their adversity. Here are a few. Greg Russell, warming up by touching the top of the antenna. Ken Witzke and his thunderous spikes that were so hard that the ball physically flattened on the floor, it literally scared opponents off the court. As Dad would say, it had players scrambling up the walls to get out of the way. Mike, what he called Spike Rockwell, sailing through the air for spikes. Bob Ireland's featherlight touch on the set. The Pan American girls and their unbelievable tenacity to dig up the ball and desire to do whatever it took to be competitive. Ken Lundine's ability to find the holes in the defense was purely amazing. A thorough search of the house, what the family calls the farm, would reveal that the only mementos he retains or displays are those given from players he coached. Despite winning 3 provincial titles, Canada Games gold, women's national team, international competitions, only 1 medal, and some exchange pins were found in a small cardboard box. The majority are letters of thanks in his filing cabinet, a trophy from his 1963 BC High School champion team, an engraved Pan American team mug, a plaque from the USSR, USA volleyball series, and a soapstone carving, all proudly displayed in his study. He would compare the role of a coach to a conductor in an orchestra. The conductor sets the tempo, but the performance is largely the result of the players in the orchestra. In his mind, if the coach does their job, the ovation should be directed at the team. And if you ever heard my dad playing a piano, you would be thankful he was a conductor. He would always say, treat people well, surround and associate yourself with good people, positive, kind, and hardworking people, and there is no limit to the success that can be achieved. Take any honor and spread that achievement evenly amongst the entire group. To Anton Ferlani, Charlie Cardinal, Mike Grogowski, Eric Lessman, Bob Bratton, Arvo Titus, Val Keller, Harlan Cohen, Jan Persala, and the Russian coach for the USSR USS series, whose name I forgot, thank you for your fellowship. Dad would also say, don't be fooled by the Russians, they understand English. To Kent Andrews, a big thank you. But somehow, I feel you know that Dad was happy working with you in those UVic years. Your friendship meant a lot. To Vic Lindell, Dad always said that having you in Winnipeg for the Pan Am Games and convincing some Eastern members that you were perfect for the position was an easy one. He was immensely proud of your dedication and enthusiasm to the sport, the Winfield camp, and the national team program. Coaching to be competitive requires being thorough, innovative, inspirational, and having balance. Dad found ways to be innovative, often taking inspiration from other sports. He would use dynamic stretching in warm-up games. He would include soccer or handball, use gymnastics tumbling training for digging balls, and likely one of the oddest but most innovative skills was using ballet training for jumping. Actually, my mom should take the credit for that. But after some good-natured kidding by Dad, my mom would have enough of it and would chase Dad around the kitchen. Imagine a sturdy 6-foot rugby football player chasing an agile, petite figure skater around the kitchen. Dad would have inevitably give up because he would be laughing too hard. They were a great team. In my search at the farm, I came across a speech he made to the Mount View graduating class of 1973. In that address, he wrote, 3 pearls of wisdom, things that I've tried to follow, not always successfully, but they have made things a little easier for me. There's always another side to an argument. Always be prepared to listen. Be altruistic. Always give more than you expect in return. And develop a sense of humor, particularly if that sense of humor extends to the point that you can laugh at yourself. Many have commented on Dad's calm demeanor, that he seldom raised his voice, and he would always treat people equally and fairly. I can think of the time at their, I think it was in the Norseca Volleyball Championship, where he was doing a room check and found a room full of country flags in one of the team's rooms. As I recall, he was rather insistent that they return them before somebody found out. That's the calm. He was always willing to help others. And I remember a phone call back in 1970 when I answered a call. From the downstairs phone, I called, "Dad, there's a call for you." He replied, "Who is it?" So I asked the man, and he answered, "I'm Alan Eagleson." So I covered the phone, yelled upstairs, saying, "It was Alan Eagleson." Dad just mumbled, "Not him again." I never realized until later who he was and why he'd called. And he was one of the organizers for the Canadian-Russian Hockey Summit Series. That's the seldom raised his voice. During the 1994 Commonwealth Games, Dad was an athletics chair. He was requested to sit with the Queen. He said later that she was polite, engaging, and well-informed about swimming. Except for the hat and gloves indoors, she fit in quite well. That's the example of treat everyone equally and fairly. There are so many people Dad would like to recognize and thank, but unfortunately, some will be missed. For that, I am truly sorry. In closing, my dad would say, "It has been my good fortune to have worked with so many talented and dedicated athletes, passionate and enthusiastic students of the game, hardworking and devoted coaches, and forward-thinking volleyball officials, provincially and nationally. By association with you, I have been blessed." And lastly, my dad would say, as William Clement Stone once said, "If you are really, really thankful, what do? You share." Thank you.